The other day I watched Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3, and it was a very good movie, but there are still some things that I had a problem with it. So let's just jump straight into the plot. So it starts off with the Guardians on the planet Nowhere, and one thing I like is that it jumps straight into the action, right? So Adam Warlock from the previous movie finally comes in and attacks the Guardians and injures Rocket very critically and destroys the other Guardians too before he gets stabbed by Nebula and flies away. Rocket is unable to be healed by their medical devices due to like a kill switch in his heart, right? And if anyone wishes to operate on him, it'll kill him. And it's been created by this company that was created by the High Evolutionary. So the Guardians travel out to find him and then to find a code to overwrite the kill switch and then to save his life. But they find out that it's in this other scientist's mind. So meanwhile, we get this very interesting and emotional like backstory of Rocket. He started out as like this baby raccoon that was experimented on by the High Evolutionary. And another thing that I liked about this villain was that you just hate the villain outright. There's no reason to really side with him. It's not as if like in Thanos' case you could kind of understand how resources were running out, but this one is just outright a terrible villain and you just want him to get beat. So yeah, Rocket is experimented on and turned intelligent by the High Evolutionary, who wishes to perfect all life, to create the perfect society. And Rocket makes friends eventually with the other test subjects named Lila, Teefs, and a rabbit named Floor. And all of them think that they're going to eventually go to this new planet that the High Evolutionary is building, but they're simply disposables for the High Evolutionary. So it turns out that Rocket was extremely intelligent because, the experiments that High Evolutionary has been doing has been failing, but Rocket was like the number one good test subject, but he was still an animal and deemed like unperfect by the High Evolutionary. And he wants to find out why he worked by harvesting Rocket's brain, but not before updating the other batches that he had and wishing to kill Rocket's friends as well. So Rocket breaks them out, of course, and you see the scene where the people, like the what stereotypical scene where like the people who are trying to escape get out and then they hug and then they try to leave, but not before they get shot, right? So that's what happens to Rocket's friend Lila. They get out and then they hug and then she gets killed, unfortunately. And then Rocket lets out this like crazy scream and then he just legit scratches off the High Evolutionary's face, like all primal and stuff. And a gun battle between his henchmen and Rocket happens, and unfortunately, Teefs and Floor get killed as well on the crossfires, and Rocket has to leave them behind while he escapes. So while all that is happening, like periodic flashbacks to Rocket's, origin story, Gamora, who's now with the Ravagers, helped the Guardians go to Counter Earth, the society that the High Evolutionary built, and to find the other scientists, but they're followed by Adam Warlock after the High Evolutionary, who was also the Sovereign's creator, threatens to wipe them out. Um, so yeah, Peter later on in the movie, Peter, Groot, and Nebula travel to this laboratory on Counter Earth to find a new scientist, and the High Evolutionary admits that Counter Earth, which literally has just animals except humans, like everything that a human normally does, but they have their anthropomorphic animals, which is kind of funny to me. So the High Evolutionary admits that this new society that he literally created is not perfect, and he's going to like blow it up. And that's what he does, showing just how crazy of a villain he is, and how he's really not messing around, and he's all about business. So the explosion destroys Counter Earth and kills Aisha, Adam Warlock's mother, while the laboratory with Nebula, Drax, and Mantis flies to space, since Peter and Groot jumped off with the scientists to retrieve the code. So later on, the Guardians are basically attacking the High Evolutionary ship and his whole crew, and they're outnumbered. Um, no, sorry, yeah, and his whole crew was like, "We're outnumbered. We should retreat and switch up on him." And High Evolutionary straight up murders all of them with like this one concussive blast. It's crazy. So eventually, Rocket, who is now safe after Peter gives him the code to overwrite the kill switch, he sees other imprisoned animals, and he wishes to free them from the High Evolutionary. But the other Guardians help Rocket to defeat the High Evolutionary after they fight for a little bit. And by the end of the movie, Krill leaves the Earth to be with his grandpa. Rocket is captain with Groot, Kraglin, Cosmo, and Adam. And Mantis leaves on a self-discovery journey. Gamora reunites with the Ravagers, and Nebula and Drax stay on Nowhere to raise the rescued children from the High Evolutionary. So yeah, there are a lot of positives with this movie. I think this is like a very good MCU movie that we haven't had in a while, and I think that its imperfections is what makes it such a good movie because almost like before, when the MCU was new, the faults that it had simply because it was new and it was like, let's just say experimental, it was getting a lot of good reception. But then this new term coined as the MCU or Marvel formula, all their movies after that seem to follow the same formula over and over again, prioritizing just a formula over, emotionally grounded stories. And I think that's what made the MCU to kind of like fail or suffer as a result. So I think like you can clearly see the heart and effort put into this movie, and I think that the faults and the efforts, I mean, the faults and the negatives that come along with this movie is what makes it such a good movie because it's not perfect, and it's just a human story. It's a human effort for a good movie. So yeah, some positives that I really like. Yeah, of course, the heart put into this movie and Rocket's backstory as well. I have no doubt that DC is in good hands with James Gunn, and it had a wonderful villain with a fantastic actor. Whoever played High Evolutionary, I saw him in Peacemaker as well, and honestly, I think he could pass as like a very good Kang the Conqueror. I but yeah, yeah, and it was also a very nice resolve to all the characters on the Guardians team as well, kind of like Titans because it was bittersweet when they split up towards the end of the movie. And they also make it very clear that the Gamora that appears in this movie is not the same one that has been in the previous Guardians films. And I'm also glad that they did take that route because it wouldn't make sense for this Gamora to fall in love with Peter once again. So I'm glad that they made that line very clear, right, in this movie. And finally, good acting and chemistry from all the cast members as well, the cinematography as well, and also there was this one shot action sequence in the middle of the movie that was just very sick. I think it's like the best action sequence that we've gotten in a while. So yeah. Now on to the negatives. There are quite a lot, a little bit. Number one, it's not really a negative, but it is something that is probably not good, but you can kind of understand it. Alex Warlock just sort of shows up here and then in the movie, almost as if he's like been just thrown in randomly. And maybe this is convenient from them to say, but he is the reason he acts a certain way in the movie is because he's like a new child basically, because he was taken out of his cocoon too early, and even though it's like very OP, so he still has to like learn his new abilities and how to control it and how to actually interact with people and stuff like that. So you could say it's convenient, or you could just say it is what it is. So yeah, it was all right, but yeah, he kind of just shows up here and there, and he is kind of sometimes the butt of the jokes. The second negative is that there are a lot of jokes in this movie that sometimes go on for too long, and a lot of time can be shaved off from the movie, and the jokes are like hit or miss, and sometimes they just clash with the serious moments in the film. And for example, throughout the movie, you just keep on hearing the Guardians saying, "Oh, we have to save our friend Rocket. Can we focus, guys? We have to save our friend." And then it makes you wonder, like, if you really needed to save your friend, you wouldn't be. There's this like 5 minute scene where Drax keeps on lying down on the couch on Counter Earth, and I think Groot or Mantis eating something from the table or whatever, and it doesn't. It's like if you really needed to save your friend, you wouldn't be doing all that for 5 minutes, and it adds up and it adds up and it adds up. So yeah, another negative is that High Evolutionary, he was a menacing villain, but you would think that with the experiments that he has done, why wouldn't he give himself more powers? Or the powers that he already had are very OP, so why didn't he use them a lot more, kind of? But I understand, it's whatever. It doesn't really affect me like that. Also, he created the sovereign, but like he's still also trying to find the perfect society. But the sovereign are like powerful people. He also indirectly created Adam Warlock, so why not just like take that and leave? You know what I'm saying? But and then finally, the Adams. Warlock's involvement with the Guardians towards the end of the movie seems a little bit forced, maybe because he's very OP, or he might just get more and more powerful as time goes on. So for him to be with the Guardians doesn't really seem compatible because he's a lot more powerful than all of them once he learns how to use his abilities. So I don't see how he's going to make a great addition to the team. So yeah, and then finally, in the fight scene, Rocket decides to spare the High Evolutionary, which I don't really get because they do kill people. And the reason in the movie he says, Rocket says, because I'm the guardian of the galaxy. But then I don't know what that means because earlier in the movie, Peter Quill literally kills one of the scientists. Like he drops him to his death, basically. And in that one shot take action sequence, they kill a bunch of people. So I would rather that they said something else other than I'm a guardian of the galaxy because that doesn't mean that you don't kill people. They've killed plenty of people. But yeah, that's about it. Overall, it was a very good movie. I will give it like an 8.4 out of 10. Definitely recommend you to watch it. So yeah, that's about it. Peace.